Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 436 through 438. The showdown has come, Luffy's desperate last attack. For his friend, Bon Clay goes to the deadly rescue. And a paradise in hell, Impel Down, level 5.5. In these episodes, I am having a fucking ball with this arc, guys. I feel like maybe this is my new favorite. We'll see. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Michael for commissioning this episode. Unfortunately, last episode I gave credit to Gabriella, but once again, I forgot to check the credit line because Gabriella was the one who put forth she actually made the booking, but it was Michael who gave the funds. So thank you, Gabriella, for managing this, and I'm sorry to Michael for not giving you your due credit. Appreciate you very, very much. So these episodes, you guys, I am just having so much fun. I love this arc so much. It has so many of my favorite tropes and some of my favorite characters ever that I didn't think I was going to see again, or at least not for a very long time. I am just delighted to get all of this wrapped up. And I have to say, and I know this is going to probably be a kind of a controversial take, I keep thinking that we are going to return to one of the islands where a shipmate is, one of our other friends. And while I am kind of curious what they all are up to at this time, I have to be real. I'm so glad that we haven't gone back to any of them because, frankly, I am incredibly engaged in this current, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be jumping around. And I say this with the full knowledge that it may very well be next episode that we do check in with them. I won't be mad about it, but I have always had a little bit of a struggle with the fact that in every arc, we are invading a certain area, doing something where our friends have to get split up and we have to go and check in with them in wherever they are at this particular location and whatever second-rate henchmen they have to go up against. And while I understand the necessity of that, oftentimes, I don't find all of their situations that interesting. There's like one or two standouts, but you still have to go through the rigmarole of all of them, even though a lot of the time it feels like they can kind of go the same way. And I ultimately always just want to see what Luffy is up to and what Luffy is doing. I'm the most interested in him at any given time, usually. So having this arc where it's only him that's dealing with this major problem, I'm pretty into this as a concept. And I feel kind of guilty about that because it's not like I don't like the other characters. But I think, it gets to be a little bit like rote after a point. We have Sanji, who is going to kick some people's asses and likely get distracted by some pretty ladies. We have got Zoro, who is going to kick some asses and surprise everybody with like his abilities and pull some shit out. We have got Nami, who is probably like gonna get kicked around a little bit until she finally pulls out her climate act and then does whatever to them. Usopp, he's been having more growth, I feel like, than a lot of the others in terms of managing to up his skills. So he's more interesting. And then lastly, Chopper, who I love, but Chopper mostly winds up in situations where he isn't even up against a foe because he can't fight that well. So sometimes he'll have one of the rumble balls, but even then there's only so much that he can do because it's not like he really has any powers other than shape-shifting. So all he is doing is engaging in like hand to hand. And so, it just tends to be variations on the same theme a lot, which is fine in its way, but I'm kind of relieved to get a departure from that. And, the way that this place is set up, there's no way they can smuggle in the whole crew. So it necessitates that Luffy be by himself breaking in. My only question is how they wind up back together, because I really don't know like how long it's going to be before they are a crew again. They are in such disparate locations. And I don't think that they ever had a moment where they were like, if we ever get separated, let's meet at this island. So I would think they would all do their best to make their way back to, I can't remember the name of it, the archipelago, the Bubble Island, because that was the place where they were sent away from, right? But some of them are in like the East Blue or West Blue, like they're very, very far away. I genuinely don't know how they get back to the Grand Line and everything after all of this. So I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that because it struck me today how much more focused the story has been than it usually is. And I was sort of like, why is that? Why do I feel that way? And I realized it's because we're not darting back and forth between 6 other characters. Okay. We were in the middle of Luffy sacrificing his arms in the last episode. And I was sort of wondering, like, what the hell? Because it seems like this is just going to kill you anyway. It's not as if you just get to sacrifice your arms and your arms fall off and that's the end of it and you just lose your arms. And true enough, that's basically what Magellan says to him is like, this is going to kill you, dude. You've already done it. You've already punched me and gotten it on you. It's too late for you now. And he ultimately has 24 hours before he dies. And I was really glad they gave us like a very specific period of time, because I was kind of thinking, well, if it's so dangerous, but he's still able to fight, I don't really know how seriously I should even take the poison as a threat. Because granted, I know that there's nothing that's actually going to kill Luffy. He won't die unless they do that and he comes back, but I kind of hope they don't do that. But even if it's not going, if I know that he's safe from death, I don't really like to have what's the word I want here? I don't like for there to be a factor in the story that feels that important, but also that vague. So the fact that we're given the specific 24 hours, I was like, okay, thank you. I needed something to sort of give definition to the threat here. So we go from him over to Hannibal. And this dude, I am cracking up because he's so mad that he is able to catch Buggy and Mr. 3. He really thought that he had figured out a perfect way to frame the warden for everything, let these two escape, and, lay out the red carpet for them, and then just be like, oh yes, this was Magellan's fault. And it's sort of funny because, like, in the end, he does kind of fuck up because Mr. 2 has gotten away. And he claims that he's going to blame that on Magellan as well. But I'm like, to whom? Because if this gets all like cleaned up before the rest of the government even finds out about it, I don't know what kind of report you think Magellan is going to be submitting to them, but it's not going to include all of these fuck ups, which is ultimately always the thing, right? If you are high enough up on the food chain, you can just make it so that your fuck ups never happened. But anyway, he is really frustrated with the fact that he was willing to let these two go and they didn't believe him. And I have to argue on their behalf here, because really the problem, Magellan, is the way that you decided to handle it. First of all, opening the door and waving them through is super suspicious. So I am not mad at them for not believing you. Secondly, is the fact that we know that you're trying to frame the warden. And if you're trying to do that, you can't make it so obvious that you are letting them through. He tells his men to stand down. What he should have done was acted like they should fight off these two, but then like stepped in on each fight and done something that could be construed as accidental to cause that particular guy to get knocked out, and thereby making it so that these two are able to escape. Granted, though, the point is that they aren't going to escape, like, right? And I know that, but I'm just saying that his flat out saying, go right ahead in front of all his men who he just told to like put down their weapons. I don't know why you think you're going to be able to make that look bad for the warden, but everybody will know it was you that did this. So anyway, they are calling to the big guys and letting them know that we have caught these two attempted escapees. And I love that Hannibal is literally just standing here grinding his teeth. And we have Mr. 3 and Buggy talking about how they don't want to be tortured. And at one point, I think it's Mr. 3 who says, like, torture sucks. And Buggy says, it sucks ass. And later on, he says the same thing again. Torture sucks ass. And I was like, you know, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I am saying that's a funny way to phrase that, because that's the sort of thing you say about a job you don't like or something much more mundane. For those who are here in the live, I don't know if there's anybody here, but I have my dog up here who is a little bit drugged because he hurt himself and had to get stitches. So if you're wondering why he is behaving sort of weirdly, that is why I put my armchair next to me so that he could be within scratching distance, because he needs some comforting lately with his little bandage on his foot. He's a very good boy. Anyway, okay. So this, the threat that Mr. 3 makes, he says that he's going to bite his own tongue off, and he keeps saying, I'm going to do it. Here I go. I'm going to do it. But ultimately he never does it, because that's a very hard thing to make yourself do. Like, that really takes some dedication. Now, we're going to go back to Luffy here. And for the most part, I'm going to skip over the actual real fight between him and Magellan, because the things that are truly interesting about this arc are the other guys and what they're going through. So really, all we have is the traditional Luffy refuses to back down despite a horrific injury routine, and our big bad villain being like, why don't you just give up? Because they always want to know why you don't just give up every time. We go back down to Bon Clay, I guess up, because he's on a higher level than Luffy is at the moment. Or is he still on Luffy? I think he might still be on that hot level. But he is running through all of these, what do you call it? All of the guards and everything. And it's fun the way that he's animated, because like at first you can't really see his face, and he just looks incredibly intimidating as he's saying, like, if you don't want to get hurt, get out of my way. But then when light hits his face, you can see that he's like sobbing, crying, you know? So he's just in a real emotional state. And he is not here to fucking play. It's very, very easy to forget Mr. 2 is number 2 out of all of the Baroque Works guys. And they are tough motherfuckers. So, yeah, he is nobody to fuck with. This guy is serious. And he is just making mincemeat out of these dudes as he runs through them. Now, as much as he appears to just be running away, what it is he's actually doing is trying to get to a place where he can help. And I love this so much for him because he is aware the difficulties that Luffy is in. And like Luffy winds up getting subjected to like a poison fog and this like wild sort of fog creature that comes out behind him. Like it's a lot of variations on a theme. And Hannibal is still like handling Buggy and Mr. 3. Oh, here it is. Torture stinks. It stinks like ass. I'm so sorry I got it wrong. I thought it sucks ass. No, it stinks like ass. I forgot. That's even better. That's so much better. So Mr. 3 yells, or Mr. 2 yells down, "Hold it right there, chumps." And he leaps down and just, again, lays waste to these guys. It's so impressive. I love seeing him be incredibly badass. It's great. Now, y'all, I should have realized, but I didn't. I should have realized. So the way this scene ends is that Hannibal comes up against him and they're fighting, and it becomes pretty clear that Hannibal is a bit stronger than Mr. 2 was prepared to cope with. So he's dodging adequately, but he isn't able to get his own punch in. So all of a sudden, we hear a voice say, "What are you doing here, lover boy or big boy? Aren't you a cutie?" And the camera turns and we see this like waspy waistline as Mr. 2 lifts up his shirt. I'm pretty certain at this point that it's Nami. Later on we see her face, and it is. He is imitating Nami in order to throw Hannibal off. Now, you guys, I will never ever recover from how easy it is to manipulate these dudes by pretending to be a woman when you know good and goddamn well from 2 seconds earlier that this was this dude that is a prisoner here. But Hannibal sees this tiny waist and that sexy voice, and all logic of any kind goes right out the window. And we get to sort of bounce back in the next episode and see the way that Oops, sorry guys, it's my dog dropping his bone. We get to see the way that Mr. 2 lures him into a room, and like, I think he just ties him up and leaves him there. I think the next time we see him, he's just hanging from the ceiling. And Mr. 2 takes on his appearance. And when we go to Mr. 2 as Hannibal, this scene hasn't happened yet. We haven't been shown that he took Hannibal's place. So I should have realized that when the last scene ended with him pretending to be Nami, and then it cuts to he's gone and Hannibal is here explaining what's going on and acting kind of weird. I should have realized that this was Mr. 2, but I did not put it together. Oh, and there was a bit that I meant to mention in the last episode that I forgot, and I can't believe I forgot because it's so funny. Mr. 2 tries to help Luffy against Magellan by becoming Luffy's double. But first of all, he doesn't change his clothes. He's still wearing the prison stripes, so that's not helpful. And secondly, he's speaking in the most hilarious, like, it's his own speaking pattern, basically, coming out of Luffy's mouth in Luffy's voice, which I bet the voice actress had a ball doing this. But it's just a really funny bit because like he has made himself look like Luffy, but the details are all so wrong that it's no help at all. And I just found that really, really funny. So yeah, the episode ends with like Luffy is trying to go to town on Magellan and just letting himself get hit with more and more poison. Meanwhile, downstairs, Ace is like trying to get some information out of the guard about whether or not there's anything going on upstairs. And the guard just keeps saying no. He is not being honest, which is fine. There's no need for him to be honest. Why would he tell this guy? You don't want somebody to sense the incompetence of the people who are keeping him prisoner, you know? So I'm trying to find the spot here where I was sort of thinking, because Luffy keeps like attempting attacks and just being way, way off because his eyesight is so bad and blurred right now. So he like winds up kicking into fire by accident because he's so off target. I had thought at first that he was trying to like burn the poison off himself, but it apparently is just all straight up mistakes. And then finally he does second gear, which I was surprised he waited this long to bust this one out. And as he does it, Magellan does Hydra and just coats himself in poison. And he's used these dragons before, but this time it's 3 heads that are just like originating off of his body. It's really, really weird looking. He honestly does kind of look like a wax sculpture, like he was, done by Mr. 3. And Luffy comes at him in the, second gear formation. Is that the way I want to say? Technique, I guess. And he just yells, "I want my brother." And he jumps right into the open jaws of this creature. And I was just really horrified. Like, there's no attempt to duck or stop. Like, I don't know what he thinks he's accomplishing. But at this point is when he's told about how he's got 24 hours. So we go to the next episode and we have Bon Clay showing up, and he is, the whole thing with him pretending to be Hannibal is actually really funny because he has to keep pretending to know things that he does not know. And also, there are some expectations of him, which we'll see later when he's in that like snowy area, that he did not anticipate as being something he was going to have to deal with. So we have the whole like frozen level, which I think is level 5. I don't recall what the name of this level is, because like the last one was the burning heat level, if I'm not mistaken. It's just called that. I'm going to try and see if it says, because you guys know that there's always like a sort of here's where we all are right now kind of map at the opening when they are in a building this way. So I'm trying to go back and see if I can find it. Sorry guys, everything moves so slowly when you're looking for like a very specific piece of information. Oh God, I forgot that he says, Magellan says to Luffy, "And then you will die. This is true hell." So let's see. I see the map like when I'm scrolling, but I can't actually find the map in my, when I click on the spot in the like, I'm really doing such a bad job of explaining this. Here it is. Let's see. Level 2, level 3, level 4 is where they're at. Oh yeah. And then it just moves away, and all of the alphabet that they're using, like it's not being given any translation. So they don't even have the names of the levels for me to read. This is not as good a map as I had thought. Anyway, so This is when it seems as if Hannibal has pulled Mr. 3 and Buggy into a separate room, and everybody seems to be under the impression that he's going to be torturing them, like, personally. But then the door closes and he reveals himself, and I was genuinely surprised because I am a dodo bird who was not keeping up. And, of course, Mr. 3 and Buggy both are under the impression that he is helping them so that they can all escape. But Mr. 3 says, or Mr. 2 says, nah, kids, I need your help saving Luffy. And when they're like, dude, you're gonna die if you do that, he says, after abandoning him, I'm already dead inside. Which is a pretty great line, actually. Just being like, well, what difference does it make? I'm basically already feeling like I'm dead. Like, I can't live with this. I love this for him. He says, the least that I can do is make things right. I thought it was better to run and save myself than to suffer the same fate, but I swore if there was any chance he would survive, I'd return and put my life on the line and rescue him, and I meant it. And what Buggy and Mr. 3 are attempting to do is basically convince Mr. 2 there isn't a possibility that Luffy is going to survive. And he determines there's got to be an antidote to this poison. There has to be a different way. And he turns back into Hannibal, and he goes and interrogates the guards outside. Not the guards. He is interrogating the medical staff. And they're saying, dude, the way that Magellan's poison works, there are so many different levels of toxins in there. It is not something that we can just counteract. And if we administer the wrong kind of medicine to this kid, he's gonna die even faster than otherwise. So basically, there's absolutely nothing that can be done. And he gets so annoyed and is really looking like he may just give up because there doesn't seem to be any hope. But I think it might be Buggy who says, like, you would need a miracle. And all of a sudden he sits up and he's like, wait, a miracle? Hold on a second. That's what he's called. My hero, the miracle worker. When doctors give up on a patient, he can still save them. He can even save a dying country. His list of miracles is legendary. The queen of all queens, Eva, or Iva. And of course these two are just like, wait, what? Because what he wants to do is just find this person and then ask him for help, which is like such a long shot. And at first I was sort of going, why would they like go along with this? But they have an actual conversation. And I really appreciated this being like specifically addressed, because Mr. 3 and Buggy ostensibly could just go running off. But Mr. 3 makes the point that after we like got caught this way, I'm sure that they will have tightened security everywhere. Meanwhile, this dude is the vice warden. Nobody's going to question him, you know, when he's like in this disguise. The best option that we have for remaining at liberty is sticking with him, actually. This is safest. And Buggy is like, ooh, I guess that's true. He says, I know that, but his obsession with saving Straw Hat is going to be the end of us. We can't keep this up forever. And Mr. 3 just says, yeah, but maybe eventually we'll find a plan B and be able to jump off and do whatever on our own, which makes total sense to me. So we find out that the list of prisoners, there's a weird thing here where Iva is actually named Emporio Ivanko, and their name is crossed out on the like prisoner manifest, and Bon Clay is like, why is this guy's name crossed out? And the guards are like, you know why, sir. And he's like, oh, yeah. I of course I know. But, like, do you know? That's the test, actually, is whether you know about it. And they explain that there are some prisoners who, over the course of the years, have just fucking disappeared. And nobody knows what happened to them or where they went. And everybody has just been calling it, basically, they're being kidnapped by demons and, like, pulled to hell. And it's funny because the idea that they've all been dragged to the gates of hell, ordinarily, I would just be like, oh, come on, guys. Clearly, they're escaping somehow. It's really funny to me how much Impel Down brags about being like the most badass prison that nobody's ever escaped from when they literally have a vanishing prisoner problem. That's the federal government for you. But yeah, because we live in a world in this where there are actual demons, it seems, and there's a prison with like the circles of hell, being kidnapped by a demon and pulled to hell doesn't sound that outrageous, actually. It sounds like it's pretty much probably what's going on. So we then get brought to, this is so funny. This is such a weird thing that I was like, but why though? Why? It would still have been believable even if they were wearing coats, but no. So this is when, Bung Clay is talking to the guard who says, I'll take them from this point just as usual. And he says, take what? I thought he meant the prisoners. But this guy says your weapons and coat. Honestly, we don't know how you do it. You always tell us, I'll show every single prisoner the courage of the vice warden, and then march forward into the freezing hell without a weapon or even a coat. Freezing hell, that's the name of it. Okay. Sincerely, we're big admirers of you for it. And he turns to the other guards who nod in total, like, genuine admiration. Buggy and Mr. 3 are over here giggling about this. But then one of the other guards says, and also because they're inappropriate for prisoners to have, we'll be taking their coats as well. Now hand them over. And it takes a second before Mr. 3 and Buggy really register what it is they're saying. So yeah, they have to go into this fucking frigid environment. Don't forget, transponder snails won't work thanks to the cold and all. Safe travels. Which makes sense why later on we find out like there's this like secret hideaway that people haven't seen this escaping because there aren't transponder snail cameras. Feels like a real oversight to have a whole level of a high security facility that can't use transponder snails, but what do I know? So yeah, they get pushed through the door and they're just standing there freezing their fucking tits off, and they have no protection whatsoever. And it turns out a real big problem on this side of things is wolves. And they wind up going up against wolves several different times. Now, it's sort of interesting because when Mr. 2 is still in Hannibal's form, he seems okay. But when he fights one of the wolves, he goes into like an immediate frozen state that seems as if it's only happening because he's in his own body. And I'm really curious if there's something about Hannibal's body that makes him less likely to freeze up like that. I truly am not sure if I'm meant to read it that way or not. But yeah, these wolves are serious. They are like a really big problem for him and for the other two later. They sort of run off by themselves. And he is left to, attempt to manage this and find Iva himself. Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to see when he becomes... Yeah, that's right. He begins to pirouette. I mean, is it supposed to be... Because you see the wind animation around him. Is it supposed to be that spinning causes wind, which makes him freeze up? I think? I don't know. I love this, though. Off to the side, Mr. 3 and Buggy are watching, and Buggy says, "Are you sure you want to stick with this guy? Because he's nothing but a popsicle for wolves right now." And Mr. 3, I don't know why this made me laugh so much, but he responds, "I admit, I didn't think the situation would go off the deep end quite so thoroughly." Oh, God, that cracked me up. So, yeah, the two of them are trying to figure out what they're going to do next and wind up doing a lot of simple fleeing from pirates. And eventually, they try snuggling up. I do really like that they attempt this and they're just it's not actually doing anything. But after a moment, Buggy says, "I'm not getting warmer at all, and this is gross." And Mr. 3 says, "Now that is just hurtful." And I fell out cracking up. I wish they didn't pull apart from each other and just basically start pretending to throw up, because it's like so incredibly homophobic. But Mr. 3 saying, "Now that is just hurtful," killed me. He has some really, really good lines in these episodes, which is great because, like, mostly I prefer Buggy a lot of the time. But yeah, Mr. 3, he's been given some of the better dialogue, I think. So eventually what they wind up doing, we have the, Luffy is brought down to this level also and put in one of the freezing cells to die. And we have the other prisoners going, are we supposed to just sit here and like watch him slowly die? This sucks. Like, this is a fucked up thing to do. So you really get the sense immediately that these are pretty decent dudes. And Luffy is still able to make himself stand up intermittently, but he's really growing quite weak. He tries to like headbutt the bars and nothing is working. And all the guys are watching him like, what the hell? He's just gonna like kill himself by headbutting the bars and breaking his face in half. And one of the biggest dudes says, "There's nothing you can do. Just accept your death graciously." And Luffy says, "I am not going to die until I rescue Ace." And a guy says, "How can you expect to save somebody else when you can't even save yourself?" This is every man for himself down here. No one is coming to help you, and you're not going to be able to help them. That's the way things are. We are alone down here. And I was thinking, as much as like they're meant to really represent a very pessimistic viewpoint, I kind of appreciated this because that is what has been their experience this whole time. And I can't blame them for having this perspective. At this point, though, here comes Bon Clay standing outside of Luffy's cell. "I am here to rescue you in the name of our everlasting friendship." And I just cheered. I was so pleased that he found Luffy so fast. Like, this was all just great. He gets the keys. He lets Luffy out. And there's a point where, like, the other prisoners are sort of looking at the keys like, wow, breaking out of here truly just never occurred to me. I just didn't consider it. Which I definitely understand how you could wind up in that kind of mindset where it's just a foregone conclusion that you can't, so you're not even going to waste the brain power fantasizing about it anymore. So I hadn't even noticed about like Mr. 3 and Buggy being backed up right against the bars. And Mr. 3, he says, "We should just lock ourselves inside." And he makes a key out of wax. So Buggy offers to distract the mutts, as he puts it, and give Mr. 3 a chance to open up the gates. And he uses his muggy ball. That shit does nothing. It's absolutely ineffective. Like, less than nothing. It's like he sprayed them with a hose, like that kind of thing. And Mr. 3 is saying, "Oh, I've done it." And Buggy says, "You did?" and looks really excited. And he says, "Yep, I broke the key, and he holds up his sad little finger with his broken wax key. I don't understand how the key can be as hard as iron, which is what he says later. But he can't make a key that works. I don't get it. He's able to make a solid wall that the wolves can't even break through to protect Buggy. But he can't make a key. What are you talking about, sir? So Buggy says, oh, I just had an idea. We don't need that cell. And because of this wax wall, he prompts Mr. 3 to basically make a little shelter that they can still walk because it has no floor, but they can carry it over themselves, and it's too hard for the wolves to get through. So they begin to slowly move, and they realize this shit is quite heavy. But Buggy says, you know what? It really doesn't matter ultimately, like, how fast we get there. All that matters is that we are safe and able to move. So all we have to do is get to those stairs. We'll be okay. And they're feeling themselves. They're like, oh yeah, and this blocks the wind. Like, actually, this is a pretty good deal. As they are moving, Mr. 3 goes, hold on a second. Have you noticed that the wolves are gone? What's up with that? And then they hear cracking. I had no idea what was going on here. For a second, I thought, like, are they standing on ice? Like, and the wolves are gone because they walked, but they didn't walk very far. So I'm sitting there just like waiting for the ice under their feet to break and for them to like plunge through into the water. No. The ice breaks under their feet and the wolves bust through because they tunneled under it to get to them, which is hilarious. I swear to God, it's so absurd. I love it. I am completely here for this. So yeah, the two of them wind out in the open air after all and just running. What I think they should do, if I were in their situation and I had a Mr. 3 who can make things out of wax, I would ask him to make, like, basically a tube that I could have around my body to hold my body heat in and keep me out of the wind. But my legs and feet are free so I can run. But it acts also like as armor, you know. It would still be a risk because your feet and ankles are exposed, but it would certainly be better than nothing. So I'm trying to find this. Yeah, here it is with the prisoners, like, getting the keys. And I love Mr. 2, Bonclay. I want to call him Bonclay more. I keep forgetting. But he's going from cell to cell asking everybody about whether or not they have seen Iva. And he has Luffy on like a sled that he is pulling behind him. And he comes across some guy in a cell who says, oh yeah, if you're looking for Ivankov, he like went through that forest. If you go past those trees, there's an abandoned jailhouse. It's like kind of far. And I saw a strange guy dancing around out there. I think it was him. It's worth a look. So Bonclay says, thanks, friend. And that prisoner says back to him, we're all in this together. And I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. But then, as he walks away, one of the other guys says to him, that forest is where the wolves live. And he says, oh, is it? And he starts laughing. And I was so pissed. I was so mad. Don't fuck with my friend. Okay? Like, I just love Bonclay so much. I really do. Like, what a gem. And I'm so, like, for what reason? Just to be an asshole. Ugh, disgusted. So, he's dragging Luffy, And I just really want to reiterate how incredibly jacked Bon Clay is too, because he's walking around without a shirt and he has that huge jaw. So he just looks really fucking like he is here to fight, you know? And he's always so intimidating as a fighter once you see him get going and the damage that he can do. But visually, he doesn't tend to be that impressive because he's wearing that ridiculous swan outfit. And, you know, in the prison stripes, I was like, this look actually works quite well for him. But it was just that he kind of looked good compared to the swan thing. Not that he looked intimidating. Now that he's shirtless and just in the striped pants, I'm like, this guy looks like he is ready to rip this entire building down brick by brick. So he is thinking about like the weird disappearing prisoners and this situation. Oh, he's not even in the striped. That's part of it. I just realized part of what's making him look so intimidating. He's not in the striped bottoms anymore. He's in Hannibal's bottoms, which are like, what are they? Sort of green harem pants almost that are tucked into tall boots. So there's a kind of militaristic look to this outfit that he's wearing. And that's, I think, what's taking it to the next level. But anyway, so he is like heading into the woods and really struggling here, but very determined. He's like, I know I can save him. I'm going to do it. And we see the wolves beginning to approach. Now, initially, he's fighting them off pretty well, even though he is really struggling with this cold. But eventually, they fucking dogpile him, wolf piling him. And he goes down and the camera pulls out so that you just see this like pile of wolves and him screaming. I hated this. And then all of a sudden we see Luffy and he sits up and he bites one of the wolves back and bites him in the back as well and saves Bon Clay and then says, "What do you think you're doing to my friend, Bon? Leave him alone." And as he says that, there's a sort of ripple and all of the wolves collapse. And I am assuming they're all dead. They all have that white eye thing going on and their tongue sticking out. So this is hockey, that he's using it again. He's getting more and more consistent with that. When he really believes in what he is saying, he's able to do shit. And I am so curious if he will be able to depoison himself from this. Like, will this be able to be a factor at all? And Bon Clay, for his part, looks around and is just like, what the fuck? And says, how did you... But Luffy goes down, passes out, and Bon Clay doesn't even get to finish his sentence, and he passes out. And we have a sort of like vision of a weird figure with a white and an orange half that I can't stop thinking about Jaqen Hagar coming up to them holding this glass. And it's a kind of a fun introduction. They have this wine glass that they apparently are carrying a lot of the time. And the way their face looks here, it seems like they've got sideburns. But a little bit later, we see them again, and they look very feminine. So this person is clearly doing a gender switcheroony as well, because this look is distinctly like more masculine. But yeah, it says the public narration, the public execution of Fire Fist will take place in 26 hours. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here because a lot of this stuff I have already talked about at the end of this episode. So yeah, this is when we get Bon Clay, and he is waking up having been brought to this amazing place where everybody is just drinking and hanging out and having a good time. And one of the guys says, "We were watching you guys on our monitors. Bravo, quite the show." And Bon Clay is like, "What's happening? Where even am I?" And there's a really big woman standing by the door saying, "Well, you're probably really hungry. We've got lots to eat." Everybody is welcoming him, and he's just like, "How can we be?" Because one of them says, "Don't worry, we haven't left Impel Down." And he's like, "There's no way. What do you mean?" And all of a sudden, this woman says, "You've been asleep for 10 hours, and my name is Inazuma. And mind your manners. I'm the one who fetched you from that bitter cold, after all." So she says, "Have some patience. He'll explain everything to you." And we get an intro to Iva that is so very Frankenfurter. As I had told you guys already that I have not seen Rocky Horror Picture Show, so I have a limited frame of reference, but I at the fuck least know about Frankenfurter. And this whole bit, it's so funny. Somebody stands up and yells, "Shake it, sexy." You have to pass through the sewers of Impel Down to get here. I love it. He's explaining this all. He's got his back to Bon Clay the whole time. So you only see the like really dark blue lips for the beginning of this. And he's just explaining this, but he's doing it with a song on stage in the most dramatic fashion you can imagine. It's wonderful. We've got food, weapons, games, but most of all, we have freedom. And it's such a cute moment because Bon Clay is just watching this with an expression on his face of just like, wait, are you serious? As it's dawning on him. And he says, "Everybody here is queer like me." And guys, I don't know why I found that so moving, but it was just like, he has been such a joke for so much of the show that for him to be surrounded by other people who get it and realizing that, it is just so sweet. I love it so much. And oh my God, the fucking way that Iva turns around and says, "Impel Down 5.5 bitches." I was like, amazing, flawless, no notes. "A secret garden for all y'all prisoners. This is New Kama Land." And everybody is cheering. And it's like, I was waiting a little bit for Mr. Chu to just start crying. He doesn't. Everybody's just cheering for Iva, and he's looking around like he wasn't prepared for this to be Iva. And I was thinking, how did you not know who this was? Like, come on. The queen of the Kamabaka kingdom. Oh, sorry. My dog just snuck up behind me and scared the hell out of me. But yeah, that is the end of the episode. So you guys, this was so great. I loved it so much. I am just so here for all of this story that is focusing on these guys instead of jumping around to our friends. I just like, sign me up forever. The best. So that's it. That's the last of these 3 episodes. And I have got to, I've got to go. I really want to just watch the next one right now. Hang out here with my Pippin dog and just watch the next one. He's so sweet. Oh my God, you guys. This dog has me wrapped around his paw, and it's only going to get worse, I could tell. All right, everybody. I love you so much. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
an Unspoiled Network podcast.